Hi there, Dave here with part 2 of our 6th version of the square foot calculator. And here we're going to talk about the refactoring, the moving things around, the shifting around, the making of better of the code itself. Not doing anything different, just making the code different by making it better. So we're going to start by looking at the A version, which we covered in the previous video about passing multiple things and about global variables and multiple lines at the end. And we're going to talk about the ugliness of main. Main's supposed to be very simple. And also, I can't even see the code anymore. The code is so far away from the pseudocode that I have to keep going back and forth. And the more code I add, the more difficult it's going to be. So at some point in a project, while it's nice to have all the pseudocode together so you can look back and forth in the pseudocode, it needs to be integrated with the code itself at some point. And so in the new version, we're going to take all the pseudocode and we're going to put it into the other code. So it's all integrated with the code. The pseudocode and the real code are integrated so that all the pseudocode for a module is above that module. And let's stop talking about this and go take a look at it. So, in a much better constructed application, we would start first of all with having a definition of what this does at the very top. So it calculates the square feet of a house and the room average. And there's the input and the output. And there is our global. There's our global constant, and there is its declaration. So we're integrating the code in with the pseudocode. And here is the pseudocode for main. Look at how clean main is now. Yeah, we declare our variables. We have to declare the variables they're going to be using. And then we just say get homeowner. So there's something that gets me the homeowner, not a bunch of stuff in there. And then I have answer and count being returned from a new procedure called get rooms. So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking all of this stuff here and I'm putting all that into one routine. I'm putting this into the first routine. And I'm putting all this into the last routine, which we're about to talk about in main, which is display output. So all the middle part goes into that guy and the top part. So look at how main looks. Set the variables, do something at the beginning, do the middle part, and finish it out. Bang! That's how we write code. Got it? We initialize some stuff at the beginning. Then we go ahead, if we need to interact with the user to start something off, we go ahead and do that in its own module, right? Then we do the main stuff in the routine, we do the main stuff there, and then we display the output. And that's what main does. All the piddly questions and all this stuff, that takes other places. So, what do we have to do? Well, we created something called do rooms. Notice that we passed in lines. What's lines? Lines defined right here. Lines is an array. Lines are passed in by reference. We can change lines inside of do rooms, which we're going to do. And we're passing in answer and count. And look, we're getting answer back out. We're getting answer and count back out. So actually we're passing in three things that can be changed. We're passing in the lines, because it's a reference. We can just change that directly. We're also being passed in answer and count, and we're returning answer and count. So yeah, you can do that, no problem. Pass in answer and count, we get returned answer and count. Well, look, they're defined right here to be 0. You pass them in as 0, they come back as something else. Now you got them, and you pass them back into display output. So here we're passing the lines into display output along with answer and count. And you'll see that it's just kind of a little cleverness here and there, but the code is really, there's no changes to the code. So here's the get homeowner. All it does is it inputs the global variable. Notice we give ourselves access to the global variable. Notice that from now on, and then we go ahead and set that global variable. We don't need to return anything, right? We don't return the global variable. We set the global variable because we just got access to it right here. So we just set it like that. And now it's set. Notice that each one of the modules has got something above it that says what it does. The very first thing says this inputs the homeowner's name. There should be a line in the top, the very top line of your code. Notice that it's different. It's one to the left. It's the very, very first space. I could have indented this more. I could have put another space there. I don't care, but somehow you need to say what it does. So here's perform tasks on required rooms. Yeah, that's what this one does. And so here's all the middle stuff that I ripped out, right? So it's inside of here. Code hasn't changed any. Code is still the same. I have square feet. And I go ahead and I get lines of 0. Look, lines is being passed into me and I reference it directly. I set something into it directly by the execution of this routine. By the execution of get room area. Get room area. Right? Get room area is directly affecting what's inside of there. It's returning what I'm putting inside of here, which is passed in. It's passed in by ref. The other things I pass back out. So I add 1, 2, I take it in, I add 1 to it, and I pass it back out again if it's count. I take in answer, whatever it was at the beginning, and I add to it, and I pass it back out again. Very simple. And then down at the bottom, the other routine that I added was display output. So down at the bottom, there's display output. So display output. So there is the stuff down at the bottom, right? I'm taking in lines, I'm taking in answer and count. It's the same code. It's exactly the same code. But now it's isolated. And I could take this stuff that isn't ever going to change, maybe, and put it off into some other file and bring it in and just use it. Because I don't have to tweak it again. I only keep the active stuff around. Now, we can see that all of a sudden we're going to need some kind of documentation. Because, in fact, all of these functions that we've made right here, these are the application program interface. These become the API. This is the API for our application and how to use it, or all these modules. And we know that if we hit main first, and we know that, for instance, do rooms, if we pass in lines, and the array lines, some array, along with some int and some other int, that it's going to do this, and it's going to do whatever it's going to do to the first thing that you pass in here, and this is the second thing that you pass in, right? And it's going to operate on lines. All right, so what we're doing is we're kind of generalizing our code a little bit. We're separating the code. We're making main really simple. We're also making it very nice for a programmer who wants to come in here and figure out what this thing is doing. It's very easy to figure it out because we come into main here and we get homeowner. Oh, what does that do? And then we can say, oh, well, what do we do next? We do rooms. Oh, let's go take a look at do rooms. It's organized nicely in main, so we can easily, quickly find what we need to change if we want to make some modifications. Our globals are up at the top, if we have any. Main is next and leads logically down through the code. Take care.